Hello, I'm Rebecca and I use QTT personal development methods, coaching, mentoring and homeopathy to help you and your family be as healthy and as happy as you can be and stay that way. And I'm in here today to welcome you to my Monday messages. What are my Monday messages? Well, I pop in here every Monday, hence the name, and I will share a thought, an idea, couple of good tips, something for you to focus on for the next week to help to keep you on track so that you can lead your best life. So today, and I've got somebody who's joined me, you're very welcome, whoever you are. Lovely if you can give me a thumbs up so I can make sure that you can hear me, and maybe let me know who you are. That would be great. For some reason I can't see who you are. Okay, anyway, we're going to start. Today I'm talking about the feeling of being completely overwhelmed. It's something that I'm pretty sure will resonate with most of you. It's something that I came very close to last week. And I think it's something that all of us experience on a regular basis if we're, well, particularly actually if we're female, because that whole kind of multitasking thing sometimes doesn't really serve us very well. And we tend to perhaps say yes to too many things, or we overestimate what we can achieve in a relatively short space of time. And we're basically juggling too many balls, and our brains are kind of going into meltdown. And that is when all those negative voices tend to come out in a desperate attempt to try and relieve the pressure on your conscious mind, which is going, oh my God, I've got all this stuff to do. Your subconscious mind is bringing out all the little negative voices that are just going, well, don't do it then. If you try and do this, you're going to get it wrong. Who are you anyway to try and do all these things? Whatever, we all have different voices, but this is when they're most likely to come out to play, which is not a pleasant place to be in. Good morning, Pauline. Lovely. Welcome. You're welcome to join me. And yes, Pauline's saying that she knows the feeling of overwhelm quite well. Yeah, I think we all do. And it's something that can be very debilitating, and it can actually bring all those negative voices out, as I said. So it's a good thing to be able to, first of all, catch it as quickly as you can, and secondly, to have a toolbox of things that you can call upon to just calm things down and just get a better perspective. So, as I say, this time of year actually is a time of year for me where I do a lot of planning in my business, a lot of scheduling, a lot of kind of reviewing how things are working and perhaps tweaking them and moving them around. At the moment, I'm in the process of designing a new coaching course, which I hope to have up and running quite soon. And anyway, all those things combined last week to mean that I was just standing on the edge, if you like, of that cliff that it is overwhelm. And I could hear all these little voices coming out again. So fortunately, because of the work that I've done already, I recognised it pretty quickly, and I could do some of the methods that I'm going to share with you today. So obviously these are not, foolproof methods. They may work for some people and they may not work so well for others, but I think they're worth giving things a go. Good morning, Katrina. You're very welcome. And overwhelm obviously doesn't have to necessarily be only related to to work situations. It can be related to anybody that's leading a busy life of any description. So don't think that it's just to do with, paid work, because as we know, most of us women do a lot of unpaid work as well. So, okay, the first method that I would do before anything else is understand basically that what's going on when we're in overwhelm is that our conscious mind is desperately trying to grab hold of all these kind of threads of unfinished tasks and make sense of them, group them, allocate timings to them, all of those things. And it's just too much sometimes, just far too much. And so the best thing to do, first of all, is to actually get them out of your head. And it's the good old-fashioned list making. And yes, we can be slave to lists, and I'm not a big fan of making lists just for the hell of it. But if you are somebody who gets overwhelmed quite regularly, then making lists makes sure that you're not asking your brain to remember all these things and make sense of them. As soon as you put it on a list, then your brain is subconsciously just going, oh, thank God. Okay, I don't have to remember it all anymore because there it is on a piece of paper. What I sometimes do is actually make two lists, and I'll make the first one is just, screaming priority, got to be done. No, not up for debate. It's just something that has to happen. And then the second list is that maybe not so urgent, could put it on the back burner, could just, leave it for a few days or a week or whatever. And then often when I come back and review that second list, it's actually halved, either because I've done some of it or just some of it's just melted away. It's not actually that important. So that's the first thing I would do, is make some kind of list or several lists. Then you're getting it out of your head. The second method, which is kind of a more elaborate version of list making, if you like, but much more effective, much deeper acting, is if you find that despite you making the list, you are really obsessing about one particular problem. You just cannot stop thinking about it, and it's just going round and round and round in your head, and you can't see a way out. Then, again, what we need to do is to get clarity about what that problem is. And that's not going to happen while it's literally up here by your eyes. If you've got a book right up close like that, you're not going to be able to read it. So you need to actually just take it out of your body. So what I do is a lovely method that was taught to me by my mentor, Moira Geary. And you just sit quietly, think about the problem, imagine it as a spot. I don't mean a zit. I mean a coloured circle, let's say. Put a colour on it if you want to. It doesn't really matter. But just think about that, and think about it as coming out of you and going further and further and further and further away. And actually what you can do is actually literally draw a circle, make it that colour, put it on a piece of paper, stick it on the wall, and then come back away from that wall. And again, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind will go, okay, that's great. That's out there. It's not in here anymore. So immediately it can just relax a bit. And when you see that spot on the wall in front of you, you can appreciate that actually staring at the spot isn't going to give you a solution. The longer we stare at the problem and really, really focus on the problem, actually all we're going to see is the problem. The solutions are actually not inside the problem. The solutions are outside the problem. And actually the outside bit is much bigger than the problem. So that's the first thing. You're kind of tricking your mind, if you like, that you're just calming it down, and you're actually teaching it that the problem isn't as big as you think it is. The other way to do this is depends on what kind of person you are, whether you're a visual person or whether you can kind of get inside yourself or not. But you can imagine again that problem as a spot, and it's there in front of you. And you then rise up. Imagine you're rising up out of your seat and you're going higher and higher and higher, a bit like the Google Maps drone. So you're getting higher and higher and higher and looking right down on that problem in relation to everything else that's around it. And again, you can see it's actually very small. So that is sometimes enough for your whole system to just relax a bit. And once you appreciate that you're going to find solutions outside of the problem, then you can start asking yourself useful questions. You can start asking yourself, okay, have I experienced this before? What did I do to get out of it? Did I get over it? Did I get through it? And most of the time the answer is, well, yes, of course you did. You can also ask yourself, do I know anybody that's actually been through this particular kind of problem before? Perhaps many times, and might be somebody that I can ask to help out. If not directly, then just to give advice. You can also sometimes break it down into actions that you can take, so that you can start getting closer and closer to whatever the solution is. Obviously, it's going to depend on the nature of your problem, but just getting it out of your system like that and focusing on not so much the problem, but where are you going to find the solutions? It just helps to give you clarity about, where to be looking, where to be focusing your attention. It also, in that process, can actually make you understand why something might be a problem. Is it perhaps that there's a timing that you've attached to it that could be in fact moved? Is it actually not as urgent as you thought it might be? Sometimes we're very good at kind of putting those timings on ourselves. Good morning, Ev. And once you've got it away from your head and that you're looking actually on solutions, you're much more likely to be able to see, well, yeah, actually, is it that urgent? Do I have to do it this week? Perhaps if I do it next week, I'll be able to do a more efficient job, and I won't be in a state of permanent overwhelm trying to find solutions. So that is a big method that you can use. Well, it's not big, it's just a bit more complex than making a list, but it's very, very effective if you can do that, is just get it out of your head like that. So also, don't forget when you're doing that process that there's nearly always something positive to learn from it. Even if it is, yeah, actually, why do I do that to myself? Why did I think that I had to do it this week? Who's telling me I have to do it this week? Maybe if I just give myself a bit more time, I don't have to feel like this. There's always something positive to learn from any seemingly negative experience. So, and that also teaches your brain that actually it's not all bad. You don't need to beat yourself up about it. It's just something that's happened and we can get ourselves out of it. So I hope that helps. The other thing that is very useful to do is just grab hold of your time management in a way that suits you. There's one method that I find, even though it sounds kind of counterproductive, and some of you may well have heard of this method, it's the Pomodoro method. And it's basically a system of time management that you divide your time into 25-minute chunks. And at the end of the 25-minute chunk, you have a 5-minute break. And during that break, you get up, you stretch, you perhaps, if you can, you get some fresh air, you have some water, if it's appropriate, perhaps, a snack or something. Definitely stretch, move around, and then you go back. And every 4 Pomodoros, because that's what those 25-minute chunks are called, you have a slightly longer break. So you have a break of about 15 minutes. And it's a really productive way of working. I was always somebody who thought, well, I just have to get my head down and plough through tasks, and 3-4 hours can go by and I haven't had a break. I haven't even sipped any water. And I thought that was the most productive way for me to actually work, to just put my head down and get on with it. But actually it's counterproductive, because you find that you get slower and slower. You start to make silly mistakes. Well, I did anyway. And that at the end of it, I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted. So I just actually tested out the Pomodoro method. This was a year or so ago, and found, much to my surprise, that I actually got a lot more done. And I didn't feel as exhausted at the end of the day, because you're having those regular breaks. You are actually quite invigorated and, refreshed, and you're having your regular sips of water, you're getting your fresh air, you're stretching, all of those things. And again, you're sort of fooling your brain into working in a much more streamlined way. Because if you know that you've only got 25 minutes to complete a chunk of work, chores, whatever you're doing, then you're much less likely to get distracted by, scrolling through Facebook or, good morning, Mary, thanks for joining. You're just much less likely to. Your brain says, look, I've only got a finite amount of time. I need to get this done. So I'm going to do it. And then again, because you're having a little break, you're recharging and you're going back each time really quite fresh. So give that a go. I'll put a link in one of the comment boxes after I've finished this video, to a link to read more about it, but you can search for it, the Pomodoro method. And the other one is Scrum boards. And Scrum boards can be very, very effective, especially if you've got more than one project going at once. In effect, you are using sticky notes, those little pads, those yellow or coloured note things that you peel off, and you're dividing your projects into action lists. And obviously you've got timings attached to those. And you're sticking it on a board that's divided into columns. The first column will be whatever the project is, or the action. The second is whether you started it, whether it's in process. The third column is whether you finished it or not. And I think you can add a column too where, if you do encounter any issues, any kind of unforeseen difficulties, that you put it into that column, because that's something maybe that will hold up your progress or just divert you a little bit temporarily. And then obviously you've got, at the end, you've got all done. And you move each sticky note through those columns. Sounds more complex than it actually is, but you can have more than one of these. So let's say you've got 3 projects going at once. You'll have your top 2 maybe, and then underneath you'll have maybe a third column, which is sort of things that you're working on an ongoing basis. But it means that you can keep a track of where everything is. You can understand what needs to be done and what can maybe wait a bit. And it's literally just like, again, taking it out of your head, and you've got a kind of management system going. There is a digital version of that. There's an app, actually, I think there are several apps, and I wrote it down because it didn't mean anything to me at the time. It's not something I use because I do the manual one. And where have I got it? No, can't. I think it's called Trello. Didn't write it down. That was a bit silly of me. Again, I'll post that in one of the comment boxes below. But if that appeals to you, then give that a go. Because if you are working like that, either the Pomodoro method or Scrum boards or something like that, then you're much less likely to get overwhelmed in the first place, because your time is managed. And also, don't forget to schedule in regular breaks, because that getting up and moving and getting the blood moving is really important, and really important for recharging you, especially drinking water, making sure that you are actually refueling regularly. All means that you're not going to burn yourself out. You're not going to make those silly mistakes towards the end of the day or the end of the chunk of time that you're working. Another method for doing that, if you're not very good at keeping track of your time, is to set an alarm clock, set an alarm on your phone, or there are some lovely apps that you can get. I use one called Mindbell, and you can choose a really nice sound that acts like a kind of reminder that you need to drink water, or that you need to stand up and stretch, or that your chunk of time, your 25-minute Pomodoro time, is up. And I have a lovely gong sound, so it's not like, ugh, you don't want that, that kind of alarm. So use those methods, and if you set them up at the beginning of your working day, and you do take notice of them, and you start working in a much kinder way for yourself, then you will get a lot more done, and you will feel a lot less exhausted and overwhelmed. What else? Oh yes, the final method, the accountability buddy. Again, something that I have found works really, really well in the past for me. I haven't actually got one at the moment, so I'm in the process of finding one. It's, again, doesn't have to be all work related. We kind of use our friends like this anyway, I suppose. But if you have somebody that you can buddy up with, who is perhaps working through as much stuff as you are, who gets you, who understands you and your way of working and what you want to achieve, you agree to meet or to talk on a regular basis, and you can do whatever timings work for you. It could be once a week if you're really in the middle of something really big. It could be once every 2 weeks. It could be once every 6 weeks. It's whatever works for you. But you will tell each other, okay, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to get done by this time. This is how I'm going to do it. And then when you meet up, your buddy is going to hold you accountable. Your buddy is going to say, okay, Rebecca, last time we met, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z. And hopefully you will be able to say, yep, did that. Or actually, I did X and Y, but Z threw up some issues for me. Wouldn't mind exploring those a bit, but it's not happening for me. Also, it's not, the point of having a buddy is not to be punishing you in any way. It's not to be wagging the finger going, why didn't you do that? It's just to actually take note of if there are any patterns of stuff that you're just not doing, or things that you find particularly difficult, or things that are challenging you repeatedly, then it's worth looking at those things, and perhaps having that other person, having another brain, another point of view, might help you with understanding why you're not managing to achieve quite what you want to achieve. Now, obviously, if you find that way of working helpful, which I think most of us do actually, it's just human nature that if we know someone is actually going to ask us, why haven't you done something, or have you done something, that we're much more likely to do it. We're much less likely to procrastinate. So you do have to, there has to be an accountability on both sides for that. I mean, your job as an accountability buddy is to actually do what you said you'd do, and if not, then know why you haven't done it. But also to actually hold your buddy accountable. So you are there to say, okay, let's talk about why you haven't done this, or if you have done it, yay, well done you. It works well. So think about that. It could be a friend, it could be a work colleague, it could be just somebody that you have trained with maybe recently, anybody that you resonate enough with. And Ev is asking me a question. She is saying, what size would you recommend the scrum boards to be? It doesn't really matter, Ev. I would say probably A3, because then they're nice and big and you can move the sticky notes around with ease. But they could be smaller than that. It depends on the size of the sticky notes and what size room you've got, because you do really want to have them on the wall, because you want to be able to see them and notice where your sticky pads are, where they're sitting in your column, and you want to be able to see your columns. But I'll put a link to explain it better. I would use the A3 size, just simply because it's more visible to me. But you could actually even do it on you could do it on a book if you wanted to. If you're on the move, which I know you are a lot, you could have a book version. So you can make your own in a scrapbook or something and just cart it around with you. Just make sure that it's something that you refer to and that you open regularly. So I hope that answers the question. Let me see if I've just covered all the methods that I wanted to cover. Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there are other methods out there. I think the main thing is to really grab hold of your time. And when you do have a project or several projects, is first of all to get them out of your head. Work out your action points. What are the things that are going to help me get to finish this project, whatever it is, or hit this schedule. And most importantly, I think, is, well, how long is it going to take me to do each of the tasks on that list? It's something that I used to, in a former life, I was a television producer. And obviously that's a massive part of being a producer, is to understand chunks of time and understand how much time is needed to do certain things. So time management, I'm pretty good at, actually. And it's something that is very individual, because we all work in different ways. But actually, in essence, if you understand, well, actually, in order to get to point Z, I need to be doing A, B, C, and so on. And each of those little chunks is going to take me 2 days. Okay, I've got a deadline of, whatever. That maths doesn't work. That's not going to happen. So I have to either move the deadline, or I have to look at what the action points are that are going to get me there, and see if is there any way that I can speed them up, simplify them, or delegate them. So get somebody else in to help. So that's, in essence, it's just they're all different methods for getting it out of your head, enabling you to see, to have clarity about how to proceed, and also understanding perhaps why you might be feeling overwhelmed in the first place. If it is a pattern for you, if it's something that happens really regularly, then that's something that needs to be looked at a slightly deeper level. And obviously, going back to the accountability buddy, that might be a professional relationship with somebody like me in a coaching capacity. Certainly with the QTT personal development, which Ev knows all about, we can actually identify any kind of patterns that might be going there that might be not serving you so well and tipping you into overwhelm a little bit too much, so that can be helpful. But also, even if it's not that deep, but you find it's something that you are perhaps struggling to get out of, then just working with somebody in a coaching capacity who knows how to ask the right questions of you and can help you put things in place to stop it happening, that can be really, really useful. And that can be a one-off, or it can be a series of one-to-ones, whatever suits you better. So I hope that helps. I would love to hear if anybody else has got anything, any other method that they've found useful in the past, or that they think sounds interesting, and that they're going to, if you're going to have a go at something like that, then please do share, because I'm always up for hearing about new ways of doing this, and I'm sure that you will help somebody else by doing that. So do pop them in the comments below. If you're watching the replay, same thing. It's never too late. It'd be lovely to hear. If you have any questions, or if you want to share anything about being overwhelmed, then I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to know more about working with me on a one-to-one basis or in workshops, then do pop to my website, rebeccaatkinson.com, and that address is in the post with this video. Have a great week, and try and stay out of feeling overwhelmed. Have a nice, relaxing, calm, productive week. Thank you so much for watching. And if you do have any questions, any of you lovely ladies, then do pop them in. I'll give you a couple of minutes, because I think there's a delay on the Facebook. No, nothing. Okay. Have a great week. I hope it stops raining soon. And I will see you next week for next week's Monday messages. Take care. Bye.